And welcome back to coverage of the Modern Super League. We've got Sean McLaren. Sean, welcome. You just defeated Luis Scott Vargas with your Jund deck, taking down his kind of quirky ABZAN Ascendancy list. How did you feel about the matchup going in?
Well, I mean, it's really good for Jund, but a sad day for Remand and blue cards, just in general. So I feel
Don't
that.
You feel guilty?
Yeah.
After how good those cards have treated you and what you just did to them?
Yeah.
How could you?
It's very bittersweet.
Probably slightly more sweet than bitter, though, from your end, as you are still alive in the tournament and you get to come back and play next week as well and try to put yourself in that championship seat. Now, we're getting ready for the last round of action here for Modern Super League for this week, and we're watching Willy Edel play against Shi Tian next. Now, you actually beat Lee when you played him last week. What do you think the matchup is? You know, Willy's playing ABZAN. It's a little different than the Jund list that you've played. Of course, you know, not getting lightning bolts and such. How do you think this matchup plays out?
Well, I think the Elf deck is kind of naturally a little favored against the Jund-style decks just because it can have such explosive draws and sort of just swarm the board, which Jund isn't too good at dealing with. Like Liliana, not good against like 1/1 Elves or Elf tokens. But I really like Willy's sideboard for the matchup. I think his sideboard is just great for this tournament. The engineered explosives are going to be fantastic. The damnations are going to be fantastic. But, I mean, I would expect him to be losing plenty of the game ones here. Now,
you said that you thought that this matchup generally favored Elves. And you think that's true also for Willy's particular build here. He's actually even lighter on spot removal, right, than like what you built or some of the other, Jund lists that we've seen?
Yeah, like Lingering Souls can kind of gum up the ground for a little bit, but if there's an Anthem effect, like the Elf Lord or Azuri pumping the team, it looks pretty awkward. Like there's just nothing that sweeps the board, so the Elf deck can sort of just do its thing, and the ABZAN deck is left sort of picking off individual things, but the Elf deck is usually just going to amass a bunch of Elves.
All right, so let's look. I want to kind of foreshadow a little bit here to what is Shi Tian's game plan going into games 2 and 3. Let's say he has a good draw and he overwhelms Willy in the first game. You know, what is his plan going into the future when Willy brings in things like Dark Blast and Damnation out of the sideboard?
Right. It's sort of just the same game plan, only worse because you're up against a better suited deck. But obviously Chameleon Colossus is great. But Willy does have the 2 Damnations that basically just win him the game, essentially, if he casts Damnation. I mean, you can't regenerate through Damnation through Azuri. So I would expect Lee to just sort of hope he doesn't have Damnation. But in certain situations, I guess you could potentially play around it.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye on
slow roll a Chameleon Colossus, sort of put the Elves out, and then slam a Chameleon Colossus after the Damnation gets played. Kind of thing.
Now, how do you think the matchup goes in general, percentages-wise, roughly? It looks like game 1 probably favors Lee, but you know, with all the mass removal spells, and I mean, it's not often that you'll hear pay 4 mana, win the game, right? Like he's got a couple of those floating around in his list as well for Willy. You know, how close does that end up making it?
It's your classic 60-55 matchup. You know from commentating for Reed. The Elf deck is going to be slightly favored, but not by much. Like if the Elf deck mulligans once, twice, then Jund is going to just clear out their individual Elves. But in an average circumstance, the Elf deck should win.
And if you were sitting in Willy's seat, you'd rather flop. You'd rather be on the Elf side of the matchup.
Slightly. I like his sideboard a lot, but I still think Shi has an edge overall here, just slightly.
Would you ever play a deck like Elves? I've never seen you play one like that before in Modern. Is that in your range?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually won a PTQ back when it was combo Elves with Glimpse of Nature. That was awesome. But that
just Glimpse of Nature. Yeah. That deck was ridiculous. This one's a lot more straightforward in the sense that it's just kind of, here's my hand.
I like the Cloudstone Curio versions. I've been tinkering around with that a little bit, but I haven't found anything that I really liked yet.
Oh man. Yeah, I remember that version. In fact, that's the version that Luis won the Pro Tour with.
Yeah.
But he apparently didn't think that the Modern version was quite good enough. So he didn't end up running
there's no glimpse. You have to put beck and call in or something.
Yeah, something a little bit less exciting. Curious, before we head down to the match, the players are still getting set. What's your schedule like? What's your are the players ready? Oh, actually, you know what? The players are ready right now. I'll talk to you about that in a little bit here, Sean. But
let's head down to the match. Watching this match.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, it turns out your schedule's right in front of you here. So, taking a look down at Shi Tian's hand here, actually, that does not look like a very good hand for Li.
Yeah, that's got to be a mulligan. It's no acceleration because the Heritage Druid is just a 1/1 without any elf buddies. So like I said, like if Willy's mulliganing and Li is also mulliganing, that's definitely going to favor Willy. Like ABZAN.
That is the case.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, it looks like he kept. I guess he's hoping to draw some acceleration because if he hits like just a Llanowar Elves, then he's threatening turn 3 Collected Company, and Collected Company is just like the best card in the deck. So maybe he knows something we don't, that you're just Collected Company is really good.
Yeah. Now, interestingly here, it looks like Willy is going to fire off an Inquisition here, and he's going to get to take a Court of Calling, but those Collected Companies are safe.
Yep. If Li hadn't drawn that cord, he would have had nothing to take. But
which is insane, right?
Yeah. In a deck where there's only Collected Companies that you can't hit.
Okay, yeah, I think that's the only card.
Yeah.
Now, for what it's worth, Li whiffed kind of. He found an Elvish Archdruid, but he did not find a cheap elf to play this turn. That one's going to have to wait. So he plays Pendelhaven and just attacks for a couple of damage and passes the turn back. But now this is huge because Willy gets to get full value off of Liliana of the Veil, killing the Heritage Druid.
Completely uncontested, which is going to dominate for the next 2 turns, and it's going to be up to Collected Company to really dig Li out of this mess.
And he will have the mana to play it. He's probably just going to have to discard that cord to Liliana. Now, one interesting play, that Willy does have available to him, and it looks like he's just going to use the Maelstrom Pulse.
Yeah, I like that play. Just pulse the Elvish Archdruid plus the Liliana and hope to get another use out of the Liliana, and then play the other Liliana and sort of basically grind through a million elves. But
yeah, and he's going to have to do that too, because Collected Company is going to present a lot of threats. And, the fact that he can do it at instant speed is a big deal here when you're facing down a Liliana.
Absolutely, because what is this Liliana going to do? Is it going to plus and discard this other Liliana? It's a really awkward spot.
I mean, there is a chance that Willy just doesn't use Liliana. I don't know if that's correct, but I have seen people do that before.
Right. I think that's absolutely correct in this spot because right now that plus is representing a lot less than the Liliana he would be discarding. At least I'm assuming he'll play Tarmogoyf and then go from there.
Yeah. All right, so Goyf is 4/5 and is going to be on the battlefield, and that's pretty nice, right? I mean, that keeps some of the pressure off.
Yeah, that's
start pounding away.
Going to be a brick wall for quite some time until Li can get enough elves to sort of either not care that it's eating one a turn or overrun his team and push through. And this is a big hit, or at least an important hit that he hit 2 elves here.
And it nets him 3 elves total thanks to Dwynen's Elite, and he gets to draw a card off of Visionary. So kind of a value. He hit another collected company off of it too. Wow.
It looks like this hand is paying off. Even though it had no acceleration, it just had those 4 lands and 2 collected companies basically, and it's working.
It is working, yeah. I mean, if those had got thought seized away, then the whole thing falls apart. But instead, it was Inquisition of Kozilek, and that's not good enough here. And now Lee's managed to keep 4 cards in his hand, and he's going to get to go for another collected company this turn and really just sort of flood the board with elves.
Yeah, and it's looking good for Lee. He's just going to basically keep casting collected companies, and there's essentially no way these Lilianas are going to be able to deal with them unless there's a lot of whiffs, which does happen. I've whiffed on collected company a fair number of times, but
this is funny.
There's a lot of elves.
Go ahead. Yeah,
there's a lot of elves.
What's happening here? This is all these cards are in standard, right? Visionary, Dwynen's Elite, and Collected Company, like the cards that he's actually casting and playing right now, you can play in standard. Good enough for modern.
Standard's just basically missing the elf lords, really.
Yeah. All right, so it looks like Willy's kind of crafting his turn here, Sean. He drew an Abrupt Decay for his turn, and it looks like he's trying to decide if it's worth using on anything here. He could start chipping away with Liliana as well. I mean, at some point, you have to figure it's not getting any better. Yeah, he's going for it. He's just going to go ahead and sacrifice Liliana to get rid of an Elf Warrior token, and then I assume follow up with another Liliana here.
Yeah, I think he can sense the collected company. It's just a really awkward spot.
Yeah, he's left his Tarmogoyf back.
And he's leaving up Abrupt Decay to hope it to try and hit the important targets like Azuri or Elvish Archdruid.
Cool play here from Willy.
Yeah, like the elves are really unthreatening if they don't have a lord in play. But Lee does have some gas left in his hand.
And he hits Nettle Sentinel and Elvish Archdruid. So Willy, like you said, is going to shut off the huge mana production that a card like Elvish Archdruid would give Shi Tian by just nabbing it right here with Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, I would imagine so, because Lee hasn't been playing lands, and he has a Horizon Canopy, so you can suspect his 3 cards are non-lands, or at least when we can see them, we can suspect that. But
yeah, I think Willy's probably aware of that too.
Yeah, and I would imagine he fires off the Abrupt Decay here, but
he doesn't seem to be thinking about it.
He could be valuing killing Azuri that highly that he doesn't even want to touch Elvish Archdruid, but he's just going to get swarmed if he doesn't fire this off now.
All right, well, there's a Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, and he's got another Elvish Archdruid there in hand as well. He could just play those, the Archdruid and the Dwynen's Elite.
Yeah, he could also play out the Dwynen's Elite and Nykthos into Collected Company if there's no disruption.
That does give him enough green mana symbols here to do that. So I think that's his plan here.
Yeah, and he's pretty much dug through a lot of his deck, so there's got to be an Azuri waiting on top.
He runs 3 copies of it, so he is very likely to hit one with this next Collected Company.
And an Azuri at this point just means game over. So Willy has no removal for it.
Yeah, and he even has enough mana, Shi Tian, to just activate it straight up. Good old overrun. And here's a Tarmogoyf now. So this does give Willy Edel 10 power and 12 toughness worth of blockers, but like you said, if he just hits the Azuri here, he can just overrun through it and not really mind.
Yeah, the Tarmogoyfs actually kill what they're blocking, but Willy will end up dying.
Yeah. All right, let's see if he hits it. Here goes collected company number 3 on the stack.
I don't think Lee used any sack land, so he's just sort of dug through his entire deck, and apparently not hidden Azuri so far.
He didn't. He hit a Spellskite and a Dwynen's Elite. Now, what does this do?
Well, it gives him just a critical mass on the board. He can kind of just play out Elvish Archdruid and probably start attacking at this point.
Yeah,
he can also
drew another Dwynen's Elite as well.
He should probably start by sacking the Horizon Canopy, though, since mana really isn't an issue with the Nykthos. I imagine that's what he'll do. He's just sort of counting now, Nykthos.
Right.
I thought you were gone, Nykthos. All your counting of mana symbols.
It's back. It doesn't see extensive play in Modern, but it does pop up from time to time. It won't be out of your view forever.
Yeah. It's not quite as bad as counting Tarmogoyfs. That's still a skill I'm not very adept at in real life. Thankfully, Moto that just does it for you.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, when we cover Modern for like GPs and stuff, we made a thing called the Tarmographic.
Yeah.
we just update it for everybody at home so that you don't have to always track it, because it is annoying to, you know, because it's always changing, right? It's always, you know, somebody flashes back a spell and now it's shrunk and you didn't notice it, or, oh, that was an artifact creature. And, you know, it's just all these little things to keep up. That's one of the things I love about Magic Online. It just says it right on there. I don't have to think about it.
Yeah. Tarmogoyf causing problems in-game and out of game.
All right, so here it is. Elvish Archdruid. And is he just going to rumble here? Like, can he just kill him in a couple of turns?
Yeah, he's just smashing. He didn't use Nykthos either, which is kind of odd. I don't know why he wouldn't just add a bunch of mana and pop Horizon Canopy, but I mean, this works too.
That is a little weird, though. Yeah, so this is going to get Willy down to 4, and he has a follow-up play of Dwynen's Elite, which is going to add another 5 power to his board here. So Willy really light on outs here in game 1. I don't think there's anything he can draw that gets him out of this.
Right, and that's kind of how game 1 is expected to go. I mean,
yeah, you said it, and you kind of wrote it up just like that. It played out the same way that you said it was going to go, Sean. So no big surprise there, but Lee is able to take game 1 from Willy Edel and get that much closer to eliminating him. This is where things change, though, right, Sean? Let's take a look at the sideboard plans for both of these players. Here's Willy Edel's sideboard, and you'll see some really nasty stuff for this matchup in the board. I mean, that Dark Blast really stands out to me, but like you said, the Damnations are, you know, kind of casted and win type cards as well.
Right, and the card I'm actually most interested in is Engineered Explosives.
Oh, like, yeah.
How it would have been so good that last game. Lee had so many 2-drops. If Willy was just threatening to blow in explosives, Lee could have basically never attacked. So that's going to be a critical card that can kind of be mass removal, which is exactly what Willy desperately needs. And it has a lot of utility in other matchups too. So sweet sideboard card.
Yeah, and his sideboard just looks great here, right? He can bring in, if he wants, Slaughter Pact, but for sure 3 Engineered Explosives, 2 Damnation, and a Dark Blast. That's 6 or maybe 7 cards he brings in, which is fantastic. What comes out? What are the cards he doesn't want to see?
Something along the lines of the Lingering Souls, the Dark Confidants, the Lilianas. Those are where I would start, certainly. And I'm not sure exactly what he's going to do here, but he does have a lot of sideboard cards, so he can probably get rid of most of that group of cards that aren't great in this matchup.
Yeah, it does. It looks like a pretty clean transition for Willy. Now let's take a look at what Shi Tian has going on his sideboard. What can he bring in to help mitigate what he knows Willy is going to be bringing in?
Well, there's Chameleon Colossus. That card's
That's nice.
pretty good against a deck that has a tough time removing it. Does Willy actually have a path in his list? Because that is would be a big deal. I don't think he does.
Don't think he does either.
Lee could also bring in the Kitchen Finks and the Dismembers. Those are really the cards he's going to be looking at. The Dismembers are good for just clearing out a Tarmogoyf and getting in the early game. And the Kitchen Finks are good for just kind of playing the longer game and having a more redundant threat.
Okay. And you said that you thought that this matchup now shifts over into Willy's favor, though being down a game, of course, means it's a tall order for him because he's got to win back-to-back now. Now I think the games are slightly favoring Willy. So, but like you said, Lee's up a game, so he just has to sort of get lucky, hit a good collected company, or resolve an uncontested Chameleon Colossus. Okay. Well, let's see what happens. Lingering Souls, now that I think about it, is actually a good way to block Chameleon Colossus, though. So. Oh, that is true. That is true. All right, let's get down to the match. How does this hand look for Shi Tian on the bottom part of the screen? It looks pretty nice, huh? Yeah, I mean, he's gonna be able to basically dump out his hand on turn 2 if it's uncontested. But now will be slightly contested here, as there's a Thoughtseize on the way here from Willy Edel. So what is Willy going to take? Does he just take the Arc Druid? Does he start chipping away at the Heritage Druids? How does this work? Almost certainly the Arch Druid here. It's just the best card in this hand, and it's gonna come out on turn 2 here if he doesn't take it. And it's one less removal spell he has to spend later on in the game dealing with the good cards, basically. And also, if he happens to top deck Engineered Explosives, it deals with Lee's entire hand. Oh, yeah. That's not bad at all. And here, looks like Lee drew a Visionary, which is a pretty great draw, all things considered. Just another threat. You called it. How did you know? Well, I didn't. Engineered Explosives off the top. And that means that, if Lee goes for the Heritage Druid, and then play Elvish Visionary and Llanowar Elves, he's going to be left with just the Visionary after that stretch. Yeah, and I could easily see Lee just basically dumping his hand. I mean, he'll probably play the Elvish Visionary first, but he's got to be aware of Engineered Explosives coming in as well. So he might play cautiously, but like I said, that might not be the best way to pick up wins here. Yeah, what we've seen from this Elves deck pretty consistently is that they often just don't have the luxury, right, of play. It's a deck that does one thing and it does it very well, but if you can deal with that one thing, well, you're kind of out of luck. Yeah, and we'll get a chance to see what Lee thinks about the old Engineered Explosives here, because he's got a mana left and he's got a Heritage Druid. So if he plays it, he's saying, please don't have Engineered Explosives. And he just played it. Yeah. So this could get pretty ugly, as that Tarmogoyf is going to be huge and it's going to be attacking next turn. Oh, well, now the Dwynen, it will be a Dwynen's Elite, though, still alive. Okay. It allowed him to play Dwynen's Elite, so that, I guess, makes it a little bit easier. I mean, that was a sweet turn for him. He started this turn with literally Nettle Sentinel. Yep. Nice deck. If there was a glimpse in there, this game would be over by now. Yes. All right, so all the 1-drops get swept away, leaving Shi Tian with just the Visionary, the Dwynen's Elite, and the token. And it looks like Willy's still going to kick back and not start attacking yet, though he knows that he loses that race. So no good draw there for Shi Tian. He didn't find any of his big cards, and Willy, I guess, just gets to play a Liliana of the Veil here. Yeah, and I imagine he's going to snap plus it, since he has 2 dead Thoughtseizes in his hand that he just drew off the top. And that's one of the things Liliana is actually decent in this matchup for. It can attack the hand, maybe nab a Chameleon Colossus out of Lee's hand. Like,
if that last card had been a Chameleon Colossus, Willy would be looking like an Edel genius right now. But I mean, he always does.
So now what happens? Willy has the big Tarmogoyf going on, as well as Liliana, but he's got Shi Tian top decking. When does he turn the corner and start beating down?
Well, he's majorly the control deck right now. Lee's got to get something started. I'm not sure what the best route here is. It looks like he's going to attack and just leave the Scavenging Ooze back to hold down the fort,
which it should do a fine job of. It can become a 4/4 this turn if he wants it to.
Yeah, Scavenging Ooze is great in this matchup. It keeps the elf deck from basically burning you out by turning its creatures sideways, and it's a massive threat.
Ooh, there we go. Shi Tian cracks the Horizon Canopy and finds Collected Company, though he can't actually cast it right now.
Yeah, and
a little awkward for him here because Liliana over there is threatening to take it away if he were to go like play my elf, and then I'll set up Collected Company, but that's not going to work here.
Willy's going to happily plus that Liliana because he knows Lee can basically play anything except his 4-drops. So unless Lee is like bluffing a land, which he probably wouldn't do, he knows it's a 4-drop. Oh, and Lee's keeping the Elvish Mystic, which is a great play because it protects the Collected Company.
Yeah, it means that he can draw a land next turn or a Heritage Druid and be able to actually play the Collected Company. Now, one question I have, how important is Liliana of the Veil's ultimate in this matchup? Is that something that Lee's going to be pretty scared of?
I guess. I mean, how often does it come up?
We're there.
I guess it's pretty important that, I mean, he's threatening to ultimate, and Lee will either have to chump attack in here. Oh, and he draws the worst land in the deck.
What a dagger. The Razorverge Thicket just laughing at Shi Tian here.
Yeah, this is, I don't know, this is like elves bumping into each other on the ground, not doing anything. This is a sad day for elf lovers.
Indeed, and a happy day for Liliana fans.
Yeah. Liliana is a sweet card. Lots of value.
I'm assuming that these are all going to attack Liliana just to try to keep her from going ultimate here. And no, it's the all-in attack and then concede. So that's going to do it for game 2. So we're not done yet here on Modern Super League. We get one more game to decide which of these two players is going to hang around for next week and which one is going to have to watch from the sidelines. And so far, Sean, I got to say the way that you've drawn up this matchup is exactly how it's played out. Game 1 looked pretty good for Shi Tian, even though he had a weird hand, it did pan out. He ended up resolving 3 Collected Companies, which got him ahead of any of the shenanigans that Willy had. And in game 2, Willy just played the control deck, and it really was that Engineered Explosives that just cleaned out a bunch of cards and left not enough standing. And Willy was able to clean up with a couple of big creatures and a Liliana from there. One more game. I mean, that looked pretty convincing in Sean's direction.
Or in Lee's direction? Or Willy's direction?
Sorry, in Willy's, yeah.
John, whatever. We're both playing similar decks.
You'll take
that went really well. I mean, he got a 4-for-1 with Engineered Explosives. That's pretty good. Even
Is that good?
When they're all little elves, but that's still fantastic.
He could have ultimated a Planeswalker the next turn. He had huge creatures in the form of Scavenging Ooze and Tarmogoyf. Like, that one didn't look super close. And I'm curious to see how this next one plays out. Lee, is he really looking like the thing that occurs to me is that Lee's deck seems to have kind of 2 gears to it. One of them is the super explosive draw that just dumps the hand and kind of beats you before you can get your legs under you. But the other one is the one that we saw in game 1, where he just draws multiple copies of his card advantage spells, specifically Collected Company, and kind of overwhelms the removal on the other side. Which one of those draws does he want to see here in game 3?
I mean, ideally both. He wants to basically drop a bunch of elves, and then ramp into slam a collected company or chameleon colossus. Like he didn't get a chance to do that this game. He just played out a bunch of elves, and then they got sweeped up, and the Tarmogoyf was enough to stop that, essentially.
All right, looks like they're ready to go for game 3. This is the decider between these two players. Let's see who can win. ABZAN from Willy Edel or Elves from Shi Tian. How good does this hand look for Shi Tian, Sean?
It's a little awkward since Nettle Sentinel isn't exactly the best turn 1 play, but you really want an accelerator. But it's still good enough. I mean, turn 1 elf into Dwynen's Elite, and he has a collected company.
Okay. Now, what about from Willy's side? Does he have the tools that he needs to take care of business here?
Yeah, his hand looks great. 2 Abrupt Decays, 2 Tarmogoyfs, and a Liliana. I mean, that's like the jundiest hand I've ever seen, but he doesn't have any mass removal yet, which could be a problem.
Yeah. So here we go. Dwynen's Elite's going to hit. It's going to create the token. Nettle Sentinel's going to untap, and he's going to pass the turn back. Assuming nothing changes here, it's going to be an Abrupt Decay from Willy Edel. Does he fire one off on one of these creatures on the Sentinel?
I think he just probably Tarmogoyfs here. I guess it's only a 1/2. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, he did actually draw a Dark Confidant as well, but he didn't want to cast that either.
Yeah, it's interesting. He might have cut the Lingering Souls, and despite their effectiveness at chumping chameleon colossi, but yeah, he's just going to fire off the Abrupt Decay, and Lee still doesn't have any mana acceleration, so the collected company is going to have to wait another turn.
Here's an Elvish Visionary. He finds an Azuri,
which is a good draw. I mean, you want to draw your threats once you have the mana to cast them, basically.
And it's just going to be Tarmogoyf and a tap land here for Willy Edel. So this is a big sequence now for Shi Tian.
Yeah, this Dismember is a huge play since it opens up the door to attack and allows him to just slam a collected company as well.
So 4 more damage is going to drop Willy. He's already down to 10. This is a quick start. It's easy to overlook that with the Elves when they have this huge potential to do, 3 overruns with Azuri or whatever, that sometimes just putting 4 or 5 power out, in the first turn or 2 of the game is good enough.
Yeah.
And here comes Tarmogoyf.
Like I said, he doesn't have mass removal. Lee is playing around Damnation here by not casting the collected company until end of turn. But Willy just doesn't have one.
Yeah, this is looking good for Shi Tian. Here comes collected company. Willy has an Abrupt Decay.
Willy's going to need a whiff here.
Yeah, he's going to have to hit not a lot if Willy's going to come through and make it to the other side. This is going to be tough. As we know, collected company hits every creature in Lee's deck outside of that Chameleon Colossus. And he's hit a Visionary, and Lee loves the slow roll. He squeezes those out. He probably has a way to hide the cards on Magic Online to reveal them one at a time.
Yeah. Holds it off screen and slowly brings it into view.
Wouldn't be surprised. And a Heritage Druid. Okay, he was trying to decide between a Llanowar Elves or a Heritage Druid. He decided to go for Heritage Druid. Now,
which makes sense. I mean, generates a lot of mana.
Ooh, he just drew a Chameleon Colossus too.
It's good with Chameleon Colossus. You can pump its power a lot of times, double its power.
So what does he do here, right? If you just ran out the Colossus and Willy untapped and played Damnation, he would be very, very sad. He can just play the Azuri, though, and present probably lethal next turn, I'm assuming. And then if Willy does have the Damnation, then he can just go Chameleon Colossus and maybe even Thalia.
It looks like he's probably just going to overrun this turn since he can do that thanks to Heritage Druid.
Right. He can tap the Azuri itself as well as the Visionary and the Druid plus the 2 Horizon Canopies. Now, is that for lethal? The Goyf is going to block.
That might be lethal. Willy might have to Abrupt Decay one of the attackers rather than the Azuri and just pray for damnation.
I mean, he also could chump with the Tarmogoyf.
Right. That even taking that into account, he might have to Abrupt Decay.
I guess he would still live, yeah, because he's taking 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He would take 9.
He'd be at 1, potentially?
He would be at 1, yeah. He'd be at 1. Nice deck. This deck is just crazy.
If he does draw damnation, which is basically what he needs at this point, he can threaten to kill the Chameleon Colossus with Liliana. So, I mean, damnation might get him back in this game.
He is only going to have 1 draw step at it. If that's the case, do you just Abrupt Decay the Visionary or something and just say, I'm assuming I'm drawing damnation and I'd rather take less damage this turn?
I think so.
Like, because obviously the Azuri is the target that you want to hit Abrupt Decay with, but it looks like thanks to this Azuri activation, it's kind of moot at this point. If he gets to untap with Azuri, you're going to lose, but at the same time, if he gets to untap with something, you're going to lose that too.
It's awkward because Engineered Explosives isn't an out if he Abrupt Decays the Azuri, because Lee will have him at 1 and he'll have 2 creatures. So yeah, he basically has to do that and just hope to draw damnation.
This is it. He's got to see a damnation, and he doesn't. It's Twilight Mire. He's going to Inquisition here, but that's going to be it. Willy Edel's down to 5, and he's going to get to untap with an Azuri and a bunch of Elves and the mana to activate it, and that should just about do it here for Shi Tian's side of the table.
It's the damnation bluff. He's tapping.
He's casting the 4 mana Liliana. Oh man, and that does it. Shi Tian defeats Willy Edel and advances to get to come back next week. Wow, that was a sweet matchup. A lot of kind of silver bullet type cards in there. That was fun. The question looming the whole time is Willy going to draw, the big sideboard card? And as it turned out, he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, Elves is always fun to watch. Just vomiting at the Elves and seeing the people struggle to deal with them all. It's always a good time.
and it's kind of fun for us in the booth too, because the deck is so just here, right? There's no delay. You don't have to wait for any big thing. It's just, here you go. And then when it does go off, it's kind of exciting. I mean, the deck can attack for like 100 damage in one turn with a bunch of little green creatures.
Yeah. It definitely,
it for sure.
Definitely a lot of action and intrigue with Elves.
So take a look at our bracket here, and you can see how things are going to play out next time as we work our way to a champion. This is going to be next week on the Modern Super League, week 3. And we're going to have Cedric Phillips versus Patrick Dickman, Sean McLaren, that's you, versus Shi Tian. So you got to run against the Elves. Yeah, I mean, hey, you were just saying you like the deck. And
you know what? I just decided Jund is a really good matchup against Elves. that Willy got incredibly unlucky.
Okay, good to know, and that should make you sleep easy tonight, as that is who you're facing next time. And then, as you can see, there's some qualifier spots to be filled here as well for the Super League Championship, which the Standard Super League and the Vintage Super League also feed into. That's going to happen a little bit later in the fall. And, that's not a one-slot thing here. You can see there's three of the players are going to get that. And, of course, there can only be one champion, though, and that will be next time. You can take a look here at how the Super League Championship plays out. There's 3 qualifiers coming from the Vintage Super League. That was Chris Pikula, Randy, and Ifro. And then from the Standard Super League, there were 4 feeding in. Cheon, Gabby Spartz, the champion, Paul Rietzel, and Josh Utter-Layton are in there. And then as we saw in the graphic a minute ago, from Modern Super League, 3 players next week will be decided who's coming in, along with a couple of last chance qualifiers. And then 1 champion, though. Of course, everybody's got their eye on winning the Modern Super League. You know, qualifying for the Super League Championship is sweet, but come on, everybody coming back next week is going to have their eyes on the prize trying to take this thing down.
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be some good matches up until the end. I mean, I'm interested to see how Dickman deals with Zoo and if I can beat Elves again.
Well, you just said it's a great matchup for you, so I'm not worried about that.
Easy.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this week here on the Modern Super League. I want to thank you, Sean, for taking the time to hang out with us in the booth and do some commentary. And make sure you tune in next week, same time, same channel here for the Modern Super League. Last week of action, we're going to find out who makes it into the Super League Championship and who wins the Modern Super League next week. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time.
Bye.